Hello, Aldi. How are you? Let's see who else is joining us tonight. Fozia is in Durban. Annika near Hermanus, my favorite coast. I used to live in Cape Town for many, many years, so I'm very familiar with that coast. Aldi's joining us from Potch. Very good. Who else is joining us? I missed that one. Nokatula's joining us from Rudaput. Mita's joining us from Leidenburg. Very good. All right, everybody. Let us get started. And Candice is joining us from Durban. Very good. All right. So I'm going to ask you folks, please, the important thing tonight is to participate. I'm going to ask you to please keep your cameras on. It helps me to see your reactions to the content that I'm delivering. It also helps me to see how you are receiving the content. And it also helps you to stay engaged. You can do one of two things tonight. You can either participate and take the learnings and internalize them and walk away with information, or you can just sit and listen. I mean, that is a decision that you get to make. What you get out of the session is absolutely what you put into it. Aldi, can I ask you, do you see my slides? Just give me a thumbs up if you do. All right, thank you so much. Okay. So tonight we're looking at Reinvent You. Sorry guys, I've just got a technical problem on this side. Just give me a second. All right. So we're looking at reinventing you. We'll chat a bit about what reinvention is. But for tonight, and because you have stayed with us tonight, just wanting to see, I can't see my own image tonight, which is a little bit confusing. Anyway, we'll make a plan. All right. So because you've attended tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to share with you chapters 1, 2, and 3 in terms of what I promised you, but I'm also going to give you chapter 4 of the ebook that I'm writing, Reinvent You, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It goes very much into depth about what we're talking tonight. We're only talking about this much, and of course there is that much. So if you stay to the end, you will receive that ebook from us. And that'll probably go out to you by email during the course of tomorrow. There will also be a chance for somebody to win a 60 minutes, listen to me, 60 seconds, that's not going to help, a 60-minute coaching session with me. And how do you win that? Well, I'll tell you that in a minute. And you're also hopefully going to take away with you plenty of aha moments, plenty of realizations that you're going to have. All right, so how do you win this coaching session with me? It's called Pivots 2021 session. Every time you have an aha moment, okay, if you type what that aha moment is in the chat box, but you started with the word ta-da, because ta-da, you've had a realization. So start it with the ta-da. My team are going to be monitoring in the background, looking for those people who are really participating. They're in the chat box. They're communicating with us. Those are the people who are stand a chance to win the coaching session. And folks, the coaching session is one on whatever you need help with. Be it business, be it in your personal life, it's 60 minutes of my time that you're getting free and with my love. So I would like to ask you to come to the session tonight with a very open mind. I would very much like you to come from the realization of knowing if you are going to become somebody else, you have to let go of who you are now. It's like You know, in a children's playground, there's those jungle gyms, they call them the monkey bars, where the children swing from the one to the other. If you hang from the same bar using your same hands and you don't move, you don't have the courage to let go with the one hand so that you can swing forward and catch the next bar, you won't progress. So I'm asking you to come tonight with the open-mindedness of saying, you know what, I'm prepared to let go of something that I know and I trust because I know there's better waiting for me. I know that there is really good things ahead of me. Throughout the course of this presentation tonight, you're going to see continual references to oranges in various forms. Now, the metamorphosis of a butterfly has always been used in transformation. A, for me, it's very overdone, but B, the metamorphosis cycle of a butterfly has 2 moments of death. And I don't like the idea that something has to die for something amazing to be born. So when the caterpillar has gorged itself and puts itself into its cocoon, that caterpillar's body disintegrates into a septic, pussy mess before Mother Nature starts re-engineering it into the shape and form of a butterfly. After it hatches and it goes through the struggle of hatching out of that chrysalis, it mates, it lays its eggs, and that butterfly too then dies. I don't like that idea. I don't like the idea that something has to die. I would rather take all the aspects of me right now and make the ones that are not working work, make them better, and make the ones that are working even better so that I become better. And I do this through the analogy of transformation, where your actions totally improve what there is originally. So let's have a look at it. Start off with the seeds. With some TLC, the seeds start to germinate. And these are the seeds of your ideas. Spend a little bit of time onto them, and they're nurturing. You nurture them and they start sprouting. After they've sprouted, they develop into trees and into plants. And with the ongoing necessary care and attention, what happens to them? They start producing flowers first, but eventually they start producing fruit as well. And then what happens is all of a sudden there's this amazing harvest. These wonderful oranges are all of a sudden, this tree of yours is full of oranges. And you start reaping the benefits of the fruits of those oranges. And you celebrate. You take the orange, you peel it, you take a segment and you bite it. And as you bite it, that really sweet, sweet liquid starts rolling down your throat and you celebrate. And it's in that moment of celebration that you bite on the seed of your next reinvention, of the next step to the better you. And so for me, it's an ongoing cycle of improvement, a cycle of getting better. So many of you don't know who I am. Many of you are here tonight because you've seen the Facebook advert and you kind of stood by and thought, okay, well, who is this woman who's presenting this? So very briefly, I want to go through a little bit of who I am so that you get to understand why I get to present this stuff. First of all, this is my family, my beautiful daughter Kendra, and my 3 animals, my little dog and my 2 cats. And my cats are actually bigger than my dogs. So yeah, that's what it is. All right. There are a couple of things in my life that I'm really very, very proud of. And I just want to share these with you because they form part of my reinvention journey. As quite a mature young lady, I wrote one of the toughest exams for financial planners. I was in the early days when financial planning was a new industry. It was tough. I had a young child at the time, and I'll talk to you a bit more about that. Very proud of that. I got that in 2001. At the age of 57, I graduated the University of Johannesburg It was something on my bucket list that I've always wanted to do. Leading up to my retirement from corporate South Africa, I realized that I needed to formulate my coaching education. I had spent a lot of time coaching privately and informally, and I wanted to take that and I wanted to use it. And so I joined Action Factory, which is the company I did my coaches training with, and I have through them have become a master coach. And now I actually train for them. I now train coaches for them. I'm also a member of the ICR, the International Coaches Register, which is a governing body based in the Netherlands. I have walked on fire a couple of times, and folks, this is not something that you just scrape the coals out of your braai at home, put them on the grass and you go and walk. Please don't do this. It can be dangerous if you're not prepped and if you're not ready for it. So please, if you ever want to do a fire walk, make sure that you're doing it with professionals. Otherwise, you can get really burnt. I have done 4, and in all of those 4, I have never been badly burnt because I did it with professionals who knew how to guide me through the process. The other thing that I've done is with my friend Shakes. You'll see there I'm holding a bar of wire. It's a 6-meter bar of wire, which between us we were able to bend without using our hands. Again, a very dangerous thing to do if you don't know what you're doing. But the long and the short of it, that is, I realized I had courage. I had courage, not the jump out of airplane kind of courage, but the courage to take steps to make me a much better person. So that's just a little bit about me so that you understand why it is that I'm so passionate about this, is so passionate about giving people the courage that they need to take the next steps in their lives. So what are we going to talk about tonight? We're going to talk about my reinvention story and what it taught me. A couple of basics about the actual reinvention process. What are your drivers, the chapters? We're going to look at that. Your limiting beliefs. We're going to do a little bit of work around that. Your identity around those beliefs and who you say you are. We're going to talk a little bit about care in the reinvention process. I'm going to give you some good and bad and some ugly facts about reinvention. And then with your blessing, I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about a workshop that I am running. So if you are interested in the stuff that we're talking about, we will have an opportunity a little bit later for you actually to get involved and to do the work. Because so often what happens is we get terribly excited after a seminar like this, and then after a couple of days, we no longer are so excited. So at the workshop, we will actually look at your values and we'll determine your values, and we will get those clear for you. We'll create a new journey for you to get from where you are to where you want to be. How do you reinvent your identity? How do you break through your limiting beliefs? How do you deal with your critics? And how do you create personal cheerleaders? And we'll talk just a little bit about that this afternoon as well. So right now, it's time for you. I've done a lot of talking, so it's time for you to do a little something. I want you to write down for me what your greatest challenge in 2020 was in the chat, and then also what absolutely must change for you this year. So what is it that absolutely must change for you this year? And if you could pop them in the chat for me, that would be great. Okay. Ta-da. All females on the session. Oh, wow, Petra, I didn't notice that. Thank you. It just goes to show. What can I say? OMG. This is confirmation of my thoughts of this weekend. I need to leave the old self behind and resurrect a new me. Absolutely. It's not going to happen by itself. If you do allow it to happen by yourself, and we'll chat about that a little later, Arnold, am I the only one? Oh, that's helped. Okay. Reinventing my mindset from being employed in hospitality to reinventing myself in the new world is being self-employed. Absolutely. That's tough, man. It's really tough to change the way you think about things. I know it took me a long time when I retired. My financial situation must change and inertia to start. Very good. Okay. Lost a loved one. I had to relocate to be with her. It was dealing with the grief in 2020 and in lockdown. Yeah, Fozia, I can only be with you and say with you my heartfelt condolences. This 2020, in the grief work that I do, I facilitate a grief recovery program. And this year, the people that are coming to us because they've lost loved ones during COVID and they couldn't get to them, and the emotions are so much heightened around this. Just take care of yourself and look after yourself on the journey. Greatest challenge, relationships and financial freedom. I need to be more purposeful in life, to use my challenges in life to inspire and motivate people. Love that one. 2021, stop procrastinating and change my financial situation. It's a pleasure. All right, good stuff. Thank you, everybody. For those of you who joined late, there is a chance to win a coaching session with me, a 60-minute coaching session. And how do you win that coaching session? By participating in the chat, by keeping your cameras on. And when you have an aha moment, just type TADA, T-A-D-A, TADA, and at the end of the session, my team will have a look and see who are the people who've been participating the most, who are the people that have had their cameras on and been involved, and that person will win the coaching session. All right. Right, so let's get into it. Let's get back onto the slides. LD, can you see the slides? Thumbs up. Thank you. All right. So let's just go on to there. Great. Okay. So the next one. Why are you not working? Here we go. All right. So thank you for your contribution to what must change. And now I'd like to challenge you with a saying from Albert Einstein. If you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got. If you want a different outcome, you have to do things differently. If you're baking a cake and you're using the same ingredients and the same process and the same method, the chances are extremely high you'll get the same cake. But if instead of adding chocolate chips, you add caramel chips, doing something differently, you will get a different cake. You will get a different outcome. So going back to that analogy with the swinging bars, you've got to be able to let go in faith and trust yourself that you have the courage to grab hold of the next bar. Okay. Very quickly, I want to go over my reinvention story so that you can understand where I'm coming from with this. At first, I went into high school. Going into high school, I was going to be a teacher. No questions about it. I knew that's what I was going to do. And my matric subjects were chosen around being a teacher. I passed matric. I went off to Teachers Training College. Year 1 was brilliant. Year 2, not so good. Year 3, I really struggled. Because in my innocence, I had chosen very young children, the old ACB standard 1, the now grade 1, 2, and 3 level. Anybody who knows me knows that I actually don't have a lot of patience with little people. If I had chosen to be a teacher, adult education, I would have flown. So in the August of my 3rd year, I sat down with my dad and I said to him, Dad, this is not working. I'm not going to pass this year, which means I'm going to have to redo it. But you know what? At the end of the day, this is the wrong level of teaching. I know I want to be a teacher, but not for these little children. My dad, being the supportive man that he was, turned around and said to me, okay, I get that. I understand. But if you're not going to teach, what are you going to do? In that moment, everything that I stood for was gone out of the window. My entire identity that I had built around being a teacher, gone. But what I did learn, that it's okay to dream. I did learn that your dreams may not be for right now. That maybe it's the right dream, wrong time, or wrong time, right dream. Maybe there's something that you have to do first. Many years later, I'm now married, and my husband and I were traveling to work one day. It had rained the night before, the roads were slippery. A lady jumped through the intersection or the stop street, and she hit the back of our car. It went spinning. It mounted the pavement of the sidewalk, bounced against the boundary wall, and it hit a pole, a light pole. And the light pole hit my husband through his face, creating some brain damage. What did I learn? Do everything that you can do today. If it's important, do it today. Don't procrastinate it because you might not have it tomorrow to do it. Life can change in the blink of an eye. Don't wait. And also taught me that when my chips were down and I was in trouble, I needed to get resourceful very quickly. I needed to make it happen. This was that certified financial planning qualification I did. This, folks, was a year's program that required hundreds and hundreds of hours of input. At that stage, we had just relocated, and I had a very young 3-year-old daughter. I was working in a high-powered position, but late nights and early mornings, and I realized that I had within me the resources to do whatever it took to make it happen. And I passed incredibly well. I was offered a transfer to Port Elizabeth. My company was restructuring, retrenchment, transfer. Retrenchment and stay in the town that I'd spent 30 years in. Or take a transfer to a town where I literally knew nobody. My husband and I discussed it. We looked at what was the best. We knew that having had the car accident, his burning potential was capped. And so we knew that it was going to be my career that now became important. And so we packed up everything and we went up to Port Elizabeth. I had to trust myself. I had to trust that that was the right decision, no matter how hard it was. I had to trust that it was going to be good. I knew the risks, I knew the implications, and I made the decisions anyway. I also learned a key thing, that a decision that lasts is a decision of the will. It's not a decision that's made in your head. A decision that is made in your head is like a New Year's resolution. They don't last. A decision that is made in your heart and in your will are the ones that stick. Shortly after that, my husband passed away. Very suddenly, he was diagnosed and passed away very quickly. And again, I knew that in a split second that I knew that I would do what I had to do to keep my family together, or keep my family going. I also learned that life has a way of guiding you. Life has a way of giving you messages when you're going down the wrong path. Life has a way of putting opportunities in front of you. You just have to listen. And so sometimes you need to be quiet and reflect. I also learned that the closing of one chapter is in fact the opening of the next one. And it's what you make of that transition that makes the difference. We'll talk about that a little later. Company then offered me a transfer to Johannesburg. This time, at least, I was moving into a place where my brother was and my husband's three sisters are. Not that we live on each other's doorsteps, but it's really nice on high days and holidays to be able to go and celebrate, and also to have a support structure when we move. The interesting thing was that I thought that by leaving PEB and moving to Johannesburg, my problems would be solved. They weren't. They just followed me. So I learned that your new surroundings don't fix the problems. You've got to go inside. You've got to spend time reflecting and learning and adopting new thoughts, behaviors. If you want to change, you've got to do the work. But that change is what you make of it. You can either make it a struggle or you can make it an easy journey. Coming up to my retirement, as I said earlier, I knew that I wanted to certify. And so I went to Action Factory and I did my first certification with them. During the course of that training, the work that I had to do in that training so changed fundamentally what I believed about myself and who I was, that it just changed the whole trajectory of my life. Doors opened that I didn't even know existed because I had got onto the right path. Finally, I learned the lessons that life was trying to give me. For 8 years, I'd been coaching informally. And now I was doing something wrong. It also taught me to say yes to every opportunity that comes your way. Once you've said yes, work out how to deal with it. The last reinvention story I want to talk about is about the day that I retired. The very last day of my work day was a Sunday, and I was actually teaching new coaches at that time. I'd spent the morning training, got home, made some lunch, sat down 4 o'clock to watch TV, and I had a stroke. The stroke struck me here in my vocal cords and in my jaw, and I couldn't speak. Everything else worked fine. My hands, my brain, legs, everything worked fine. Thank heavens. So I picked up my phone, I dialed my daughter, immediately she knew that there was something wrong. Phoned the ambulance, jumped into her car. By the time that she got here, the ambulance was here. But in the meantime, I'd realized what was going on, so I locked up the house, I got my wallet, made sure I had my medical aid card, put shoes on, and I was sitting outside waiting. And in that moment of waiting, I remember reading somewhere that if you have a stroke, you've got to get the body to function the way it does normally. And so I started saying an affirmation. My mind and body are healthy and strong. My mind and body are healthy and strong. My mind and body are healthy and strong. And I probably said that for about 15 minutes. By the time the ambulance and my daughter arrived, I could communicate with them slowly, but I could tell them what was happening, tell them what was going on, how I was feeling, which I couldn't have done 20 minutes ago. I don't know whether I would be speaking to you today if I hadn't done it. Life gives you warnings. Please listen to them. So overall, my personal reinvention, over and over again, I had to take control of my life. And so today, very proudly, I'm doing what I love best, what makes me happy, what makes me excited, and what makes me fulfilled every single day. And at the same time, I'm preparing for the next phase. Folks, your past does not define who you are now or what your future is. You do. You decide what your future is going to look like. Because if you don't, the journey of life, the game of life will decide for you. Folks, I'm not anything special. Sorry, just give me a second. There's a person coming in. Just want to get them in. I'm not anything special. If I can do this, so can you. The trick to it is, though, you need the right focus and you need the right plan. You've got to know what the journey is. So now I have 3 questions for you. And again, this is a Tada moment, folks. What has been the most challenging time of your life? What did I learn from it? And how was I different after? Think about that for a moment. What was the most challenging time of my life? What did I learn from it? And how was I different afterwards? Pop your answers into the chat.
Leslie, can you just repeat the last question?
What did I learn? Let me put it up again. What did you learn and how was I different after? So let me give you an example. Many people would say, if they are the person that is being divorced, that their divorce was their most challenging time of their life. But through that journey, they learned that they were strong, that they had courage. And they were different afterwards because they had the confidence to be who they were. So let's see. Ta-da moments. Please start it with a ta-da so my team can pick it up. Life is a way of guiding you even when you don't like the event that has just happened. Totally. I lost my mum in a car accident in October. Absolutely. 4 weeks later, left hospital. Been walking in Edmonds. It's wonderful. Oh, that's so amazing. Retrenched. And I have felt since then this gratitude that everything has happened for the exact reason. So many times when people stand many years after an event, one of these challenging times in your life, and they look back and they say, what a blessing that time was. Because it has given me this, it has given me that. It's given me these opportunities. And we'll talk a little bit more like that. Positive affirmations. I have to take control of my life, not allow others to control me. Folks, yep, you've got to take the steering wheel. Relocated, leaving my eldest daughter to study. My other daughter had to go to school 2 hours away. Yep. Sometimes we have to do these things. Most challenging time was when I was diagnosed 4 years ago, and then just 2 years later, my mom was first diagnosed. Tough times, really, really tough time. This was the worst time of my life. I had to be strong for my 2 daughters and put up with a strong front. Want to use the challenge to encourage women. Oh, that's amazing. You're turning your personal challenges into lessons that other people can learn from. I applaud you. Being rejected by my stepchildren and their behavior towards me was devastating. A difficult time at work, then I left, I learned that I was stronger than the situation. I knew how to deal with challenges at work later on. Absolutely. What are the lessons that we learn? Not willing to name the most challenging time or what I learned, but I was totally invigorated after that and made major life changes. Wonderful. Folks, with your permission, I would like to digress from the agenda a little bit because I'm seeing a thread coming through here. And it's not part of this agenda, so please forgive me, I'm going to address it as quickly and as briefly as I can. There are things that happen outside of you that influence you. The economy, the weather, the taxi driver that cuts you off, SARS's determinations, COVID, the thoughts and behaviors of your friends and family, the thoughts and behaviors of your children, the thoughts and behaviors of basically other people. You have no control over that stuff. So if you allow that stuff to weigh heavy on you, think of your life as a bubble. And all of this stuff is putting outside pressure on you. Your bubble is going to burst. Your balloon is going to burst. It's going, and all it does is it shrinks your world, making it smaller and smaller. The only things that you have control over, please listen to me very carefully. The only thing you have control over is what you think, how you behave, and the decisions that you take. Those are the only things you have control over. Those of you who've got significant others, you've got spouses, please don't try and change them. You have no control over who they are. You fell in love with them because they were who they are. Please don't go and change them. Understand what you have control over and stop worrying about what you don't. All it does is it creates anxiety in your world that is disempowering. Focus on yourself. Focus on what you can do and take control back. We do go into that a little bit more in the workshop. For those of you who do eventually decide to join us on the workshop. All right, great. Thank you for all of that sharing, folks. All right. Great. So let's go into the actual process of reinvention. Where do we start? On the journey of your life, are you sitting in the train or in the bus just waiting for your life, whether it's your higher power, your God, whatever you want to refer to? Are you just sitting and being a passenger on your life journey? Or are you actually in the steering wheel? Are you taking the decisions, driving your life where you want it to go? Who's in control? Are you in control? Are you pushing all the buttons? Or are you allowing some crazy, believe it or not, that's a poodle, to be the conductor of your life? Are you conducting sweet, harmonious music? Or are you letting somebody else do it? So here's another exercise I want you to think about. I want you to think about a challenging chapter in your life. And I want you to think of an easy chapter in your life. Just write them down for now. A challenging chapter and an easy chapter. Don't overthink it. Just pick any one in easy time and a challenging time. And now I want you to think to yourself, who was in control of that chapter? Who or what was in control? And I'm pretty, yep, absolutely better. I'm pretty sure that when you look at that challenging chapter in your life and you look and see what was in control, it wasn't you. Because somebody or something else was making decisions that you had to toe the line with. But when you look at the easy chapter in your life, that's when you were making the decisions. So I'd very much like to encourage you, we're going to look at more chapters a little bit later. Go and do this exercise over your entire life. Look at the challenging times and look at the good times. Look at the pattern that was created every time you had a tough chapter and every time you had a good chapter. All right. So let's take a bit of a deeper look into your chapters. And chapters, folks, are just another way of saying changes in your life. Chapters are when one chapter closes and the next one opens, and there are just a couple of ideas. When you get married, when you become an empty nester, when you're retrenched, all of these things, there are changes in your life. Some of them happen by your own instigation. So where you decide to go and do some self-studying, change a job, change a career, where you want to get divorced, where you want to immigrate, whether you're moving out of the area or locally or a retirement, or if a spouse dies, if you're retrenched, you're the person who's being divorced, you're forced to take early retirement, there's a permanent injury, or maybe you've been fired. Each one of these comes with questions. And in the world of your changing chapters, a very good question to ask is, what did my previous chapter need of me? And what does my next chapter need of me? Who do I need to become? We're going to look a little bit at your limiting beliefs in a moment. What are your limiting beliefs? What are the disempowering beliefs? What are the things that you say about yourself? What are the things that you tell others about yourself? I'm not good at names. I can't remember. Oh, I can't do this because I can't do that. I'm not good at. What are all these limiting things that you tell yourself? And then we're going to look a little bit at your identity. Who are you now? And who do you need to become to succeed at your next chapter? Right, so let's take a little bit of a look at your chapters. My very good friend and teacher and mentor, Dion Carnival's in fact, she believes that your chapters change on average every 7 years. Every 7 years you go through a different phase in your life. 7, 14, 21, 28, 35. That's just the 7 times table, so you don't need to write them down. So here's an exercise. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to pick one of those ages. Anyone. Think about what was happening at that time. Think about the change that was happening. Was it voluntary or involuntary? Were you driving it or something else driving it, somebody or something else? And what is the lesson that you learned? So pick an age, what was happening at the time. Was it voluntary or involuntary change that was happening? Were you driving it or was it externally driven? And what was the lesson? And that's another to-do moment. So once you've got that clarity, pop it into the chat and let's see what comes out. Ah, Frazia, a wonderful feeling when I was in football, I'm sure. All right, so let's see what you're popping into the chat. All right. Don't let past dictate the future. Nice to die there. Choosing to live with purpose and making a difference in society. Making each day and each step count. Love that. Okay, I'm just waiting for something more to come through in the chat. All right, let's see. Don't let your past. I'm mostly impulsive making decisions. This should change now. Totally, some of the decisions that you make are decisions that are okay to make these impulsive decisions around. Others are not. And the question is, how do you know which is which? Okay. Taking the decision was the best at the time. In retrospect, no regrets. And that's so important, folks. You've got to remember that we are programmed to take the best decision for us in that moment. Years later, we look back on it and with new insight, we can say, maybe I should have changed that decision. But we can now maybe go ahead and make a different decision. But you cannot stand now with new insight and judge yourself and be critical for the great decisions that you made. Okay. All right. So, your chapter transitions, they can either be a challenge or they can be a blessing, depending on who's driving it, depending on what it is, and depending on whether while you're in that moment, in that tough time, you can stop and say, you know what? This is a really tough time. But I know that when I get through this, I'm going to be better because I can do X, Y, Z. And so by focusing on the future benefit rather than the current pain, you have a towards view, a view of the future. That transition becomes a blessing so much quicker. What if we change our challenges into celebrated chapters of creation? Creating a new future. Not looking back at the past, not looking back and saying, you know what, there's nothing you can do about the past, guys. Your life is going to change whether you're driving it or not. And it's up to you. It's up to you to decide who's going to be in charge. All right. Okay. Are there any questions around that section on chapters, folks? Are there no questions? All right. Done myself, but let me just get I've been celebrating chat. Wonderful. Very good, Candice. Well done. Lovely. All right. So let us go on then. If there are no questions, we'll go on to the next section about limiting beliefs. Shame, poor Pietro keeps falling off and trying to come back on again. Shame, Pietro. Okay. All right. So let's talk about limiting beliefs or disempowering beliefs for a little while. How are your limiting beliefs created? Your limiting beliefs are created in a moment of empowerment, where something happens, and in order to protect you and to keep you safe, your mind creates a story around that event. To protect you and keep you safe, it creates a story. So what do I mean by that? Recently had a client, her age 10, her folks were divorced, she was living with her dad. One night, she was standing next to the staircase, he was coming down the steps, he walked straight past her because he didn't see her, out the door with a woman, and her adult brain knows that she was going on a date. But because he didn't say goodbye to her, and because he didn't tell her where he was going, she created the story in her mind that he was abandoning her. In that moment, she felt abandoned. So she created a story that he loves this woman more than he loves her. That served her at that time. But what happened her entire adult life, in every relationship that she was in, she created the scenario where men are abandoning her. Every man she had abandoned her. Because what happened was she would phone them every 5 minutes. Where are you? Who are you with? What are you doing? And so she drove them away. Her behavior to prevent the abandonment drove them away. The minute we got to understanding that belief, we were able to deal with it. So your beliefs are created, your limiting, disempowering beliefs are created either in a moment or over a period of time where the same thing is repeated by our parents. Big boys don't cry. Good girls don't wear miniskirts. Good girls don't wear red lipstick. They might have served you at that point in time, but they're no longer serving you now. These limiting beliefs are so automatic and they're so ingrained in us that there is just no ways that we even know that they exist. They are part of our makeup. They are part of our lives. They just are. And when we suddenly find out that other people don't believe the same thing, we suddenly, oh my gosh, not everybody lives this way. But what happens is they restrict your world. They make your world smaller. They keep you playing small. They keep you saying, I can't, I can't, I can't, I don't know how. Because they've been so deeply programmed. So they create this glass ceiling around over your life. And so it's your choice to find them and break through them, or to keep them. It's a choice, folks. It's so deeply embedded in your subconscious. The problem with these things is that they are so insidious. You can't suddenly stand back and say, right, I am now going to look for my limiting beliefs. Because you won't find them, because they hide. They hide from you, but they show up as fears. It's like on a hot summer's day, when you hear the crickets in the garden, chirp, 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 you go and lie on your tummy, you go and scratch. You'll never ever find them, because they're always one step ahead of you hiding. So you need a sneak attack. Ladies and gents, we've been going for an hour. I want to give you a 5-minute dash to the loo break. Okay, we'll be back in just 5 minutes, and then I'll show you and talk to you about the sneak attack, about how do we actually get this all to work? How do we find these limiting beliefs, and how do we deal with them? All right, so we'll take a 5-minute run to the loo, grab a cup of water, glass of water, a cup of tea, and I will see you back in just 5 minutes. All right, everybody, welcome back. And apologies for quickly sending you off. But as you can hear, I was trying to wrestle a little feline who wanted out, and I had to let her out quickly. All right. Okay, so let's go with the plan. So the first steps of the plan are quite simple, and they're quite easy to follow. So let's get straight into them. The success of this plan is all about asking really good questions. When you ask yourself really good questions and you listen to the answers, listen to the answers that are coming from your subconscious or your soul or whatever you want to refer to, that inner part of you. Question 1. In what area of my life am I challenged the most? Just write down the answer. Question 2. In what area of my life do I keep trying to make changes over and over again, and the changes never last? So things like, I need to start saving, or I need to lose weight, or I need to stop smoking, or I need to drink less, I need to drink more water. And you keep making these promises to yourself, like the New Year's resolutions I was talking about a little earlier. You know, statistics show that 94% of New Year's resolutions are out of the water, gone, broken by the 5th of January. That's scary. And that's because the decisions are being made in the wrong place in your being. Question number 3. What is the number one situation in my life where I feel most insecure, powerless, unhappy, or frightened? Now, these 3 may be similar or related. They may be totally unrelated. It's fine. It doesn't matter. So just jot down for a moment what you think that is. The number one situation where you're most insecure, powerless, unhappy, or frightened. And then what is the reason that you feel insecure, powerless, happy, scared in that situation? So the idea is to write down all of your answers, which I trust that you've been doing. Once you've done that with a couple of the situations, I want you to look at the responses, and I want you to look for the patterns, and I want you to look for the themes. What are the recurring situations that happen in your life? They may show up in different jackets. I like to call them jockeys. They show up in different jackets, but the underlying situation is always the same. So let us, for argument's sake, say that in work meetings, you're always very anxious that somebody's going to call on you. Or in a family gathering, you're always anxious about the fact that somebody's going to ask you a question you don't want to answer. Or at a social event, you're always anxious somebody's going to talk about a subject you don't know anything about. Where does that anxiety come from? What is the underlying cause of that anxiety? And then we're going to ask ourselves some more questions. When was the very first time that I felt like this? no matter how young it was. When was the first time that I remember feeling like this? What was happening at that time? If it was one incident, it was one incident. If it was a whole lot of incidents where the same pattern was coming through time and time and time again, what was happening at the time? What is the story that you told yourself about that incident, about that situation? And is it the only possible interpretation that you could have made? Is there another interpretation that you could have made to that situation or those series of situations? And how does this thought or the story that you created around this thought limiting your life today? In what way is it keeping you playing small? And finally, how can I change the story to make that an empowering thought rather than a disempowering thought? Okay, so in the chat, if you could pop anything that came to realization, anything that you realized. Okay, I'm just going to switch off my slides again. All right, let's see. Feeling so emotional, childhood memories coming through. I need to face them and move forward. Well, hopefully this step-by-step process has given you the ability to do that. All right. Okay, good. Thank you, Zani. I hope that this is bringing new perspective to you. All right. Just give it another moment or two and see if there are other... There's always a delay, folks, between the time that you put something into the chat and the time that it comes to me. All right. Nothing else coming through. All right. So then let us carry on with... There we go. Deep-rooted sense of fear over running my own business and failing. Okay. Coming from watching my dad start and fail one business after another for at least 30 years or so. Absolutely. I mean, that is a patterned behavior that definitely would create the fears. And while we're not covering fears in this particular evening, fears are so important, you know, and they just keep coming up and coming up and coming up until we do something about them. They're not going to go away. We have to understand them, understand where they come from, understand the message that they're trying to give us. And it's a process, folks. It's definitely a process. All right. Limiting beliefs changed the course of my life. I didn't achieve my dreams, but I found a new path. Well, it's never too late. Maybe it wasn't the right dream at the right time. Maybe that dream will see the light of day now. All right. So let us spend a little bit of time just looking at identity. I want to take a different perspective of identity. Identity is not the number that's on your identity card or in your green identity book. That's not what identity is. In the connotation of what I'm talking about identity, you have two identities. You have an inner identity and you have an outer identity. Okay. Why is this so important? Because your identity, inner and outer, rules every decision, your thought patterns, and your behaviors. So if you know what your identity is and you align your thought patterns, and to go back to what somebody said earlier in the chat, your affirmations, if your affirmations are aligned with your identities, they become hugely impactful. If your affirmations are not aligned with your identities, you've got identity on the one side that's pulling and you've got your brain on the other, and they're pulling in different directions, which is going to make it incredibly difficult for you to achieve those goals. But if you reword those affirmations to line up with your identity, suddenly the power is there. So let's just have a look at this. I want to give you an example, and the pop star is just one example. So think of a person who's a pop star, right? They live a pop star life. They live in pop star town, surrounded by all other pop stars. They drive pop star cars. Their kids go to pop star schools. They're surrounded by bodyguards. They're surrounded by people who make their decisions for them. And they actually live, most of them, a very lonely life because their entire identity is wrapped up in this identity of being a pop star. All their decisions, their behaviors, and their thoughts are governed by this identity of being a pop star. Or you have a person who is a father and a husband first and foremost, and he just happens to have the most successful rock career ever. And in this case, I'm thinking of Jon Bon Jovi, the leader of the group Bon Jovi. In his early days, he was all wrapped up in this identity of pop star. Pop star is what he was. And then at a point in time, he married his childhood sweetheart, as far as I'm aware. And he became, first and foremost, a husband and then a father who happened to have a pop star career. Now, when his identity was wrapped up in pop star, if his career had failed at that time, he would have considered himself a failure. But if for any reason his career is suddenly whipped out from underneath him now, the fact that he was previously a pop star is not going to be the guiding thing that decides how he behaves and how he thinks, because that is governed by the fact that he is a father and a husband first. So I want you to think about that situation that you were talking about just now. That situation that you found most challenging. I want you to think about that situation, and I want you to think about what was your identity in that situation. What is the identity that you carried in that situation? And once you've done that, I want you to then think about What identity would you have liked to have had in that situation? And instead of thinking what you were in that situation, think about who you were. Were you kind? Were you generous? Were you angry? Were you worried? Were you anxious? Who were you at that time? Because the reality is that we have these internal and external identities. The internal identities are the who we are. I'm kind, I'm generous, I'm loving, I'm filled with anxiety, I'm fearful. Whatever the who you are doesn't change. Who you are carries with you through all of your chapters. It's the external identities of what you are that changes. I'm the class clown, I'm the comedian, I'm the labels that everybody around you gives you. Some of them are with you for a long time and others not. The labels that you would have had at school possibly don't apply today. Things, labels like daughter, sister, husband, wife, son, those are labels that you're going to have with you for a long time. They also talk to your relationships. But the labels that change consistently are the ones that answer the question, what am I? I'm the manager. I'm the team leader. I'm the, I don't know, whatever it is, as your career changes. I'm Susan's friend. I'm Michael's best buddy. These things change in our lives. So think about that for a moment and then just please put a da in for me. What are you realizing about yourself? What are you realizing about your identity? You can pop that in the chat for me. All right. Ta-da, rewiring our brains to think positively. Our minds are like a landscape. We daily need to weed that mind out of negative thoughts and add those positive affirmations and self-beliefs. Totally agree, Noreen. We have to work on it every day. All right, let's see if there's any others that are coming through. All right. Okay, nothing else coming through. So, oh, there we go. Internal identity, external identity are in conflict with one another. That is so true. And if you've got the one pulling this way and the other one pulling that way, something's got to give. As soon as those two pulls start pulling in the same direction. And this is why we need to know what our values are. This is why we need to understand who we are, what we are. So when we align all of these things together, start off with your values. From your values, you go into your identity, you go into your limiting beliefs, you go into your dreams and goals, and you line all of these things up. They then become powerful and executable, and no longer are they going to be fighting with each other. All right. Okay. Are there any questions on this, folks, so far? Let me just stop my slides. If anybody's got any questions on this? pop your hand up or put a hand up and so I can ask. All right. Okay, let's carry on. All right. Let me just click there. There we go. All right. So finding the real you. How do you go about finding the real you? This is not an overnight process, folks. This is not something you can sit down and do very easily, because you know what happens is you push yourself and you get to a place of anxiety, and then you say, no, this is too hard. And then you run back to the center of your zone of comfort. Find out what your values and your personal beliefs are. What are the values that are important to you? What are the beliefs that you have about yourself and the world around you that are important to you? Consider your past choices and the choices that you have ahead of you now. Look at the patterns, look at the decisions. You'll see a lot of the work that I'm suggesting that you do, it needs time to reflect, it needs time to think and to ponder. Take the time. Work out who you are. Who are you now and who do you need to become in the next phase of your life? Get those things aligned. And work out in your world what is real and what is imagined. So when I say that, I don't mean that you're imagining things that didn't happen. It's not what I'm saying. Big boys don't cry is something that our boys in South Africa are taught from very little. And then we wonder why we raise men who are emotionally disconnected. Because as little boys, they've been taught to disconnect from their emotions. Good girls don't wear red lipstick. Is that real? Big boys don't cry. Is that real? Good girls don't wear miniskirts. Is that real? Work out, are these things that you tell yourself about yourself real or imagined? And then probably the most important one is to get help. Get somebody who can walk a journey with you. Get somebody who can hold your hand through this reinvention process. So you've taken time, you've sat down and you've worked out your chapters and you've looked at the patterns of your chapters. You've looked at your limiting beliefs. You've looked at your identity, and we've created the structure, and we're going to use this bench to represent the structure. And you'll notice each one of these legs is slightly different. And you decide that you're going to reinvent yourself. You decide that you're going to take control of the change in your life and you're going to move forward. So you go out and you go and tell the world. And what happens is the world freezes you out, because the world does not have a vested interest in you changing. The people around you want you to stay the same, because the people around you know how to deal with the who that you are today. They don't know how to deal with the new you that you're going to become. So they tell you not to do that. They tell you not to go ahead with this. They tell you to play a small game. And if they don't do that, they criticize you from here to next year, telling you you're useless. Look, you've tried this thing 1,000 times before. It hasn't happened. What makes you think? And they put all the doubt into your head. So please, whatever you do in your journey of change in your life and in your journey of recreation, make sure that you put yourself in a place of nurturing, a place where your seeds can germinate, where they can be nurtured, where you can develop, where you can start to produce fruit, where you can have this amazing reinvention of yourself. Step into your magnificence and claim the life that you were designed to live, not the small life that you've been living, and then celebrate. Celebrate each of the milestones. Don't wait for the end. I promised you a little bit of information about the good and the bad and the ugly of the reinvention process. Here they are, the good. The good thing about your reinvention process is that your yesterday does not define your tomorrow. You do. The bad news, if it is to be, it is up to me. Nobody can do this work for you. Only you can do this work. If you want your life to change, you have to make it happen. The reinvention journey can get a bit messy because you're looking back into your past, you're looking back into your emotions, you're looking back into all of those limiting beliefs. It can get messy. But oh my goodness, is it so worth it? When you come out the other side, living this life in your genius, in your magnificence. So I ask you the question, are you willing to break up with yourself now, with who you are today, with the identities that you've been carrying, to move forward into your magnificence, to claim this future that you never ever thought you could? So many of the older generation on this call will recognize this from an advert that used to play many, many years ago, and there were always wild adventures. You can stay as you are for the rest of your life, or you can change to, I'm not going to sing it because my microphone will break and the screen will shatter. So I ask you, you can stay as you are for the rest of your life, or you can reinvent yourself. It's a choice, folks. It's not anybody else's choice but your own. Choosing to stay as you are, in all likelihood, will lead to increasing stress and anxiety. Life becomes more and more difficult. Your challenges become greater and greater as life is giving you messages that you're on your wrong path. But because you keep ignoring them, the challenges get harder and harder. Ongoing procrastination, because the things that you've got to do don't align with your values. They don't align with the things that you believe yourself to be. And so you don't want to do them. So you procrastinate. There's this increasing sense of stuckness, not moving, of creating wishes and dreams and goals that don't get fulfilled because you're not becoming the person that you need to become to fulfill them. You stagnate. Same year, same life, day in, day out, month in, month out, year in, year out. 2020 all over again, just call it 2021. An increasing frustration at the sense of feeling left behind and excluded because other people around you are growing, but you're stagnating. Or the other option is you can decide that you're going to reinvent. You're going to take control of life. You're going to take control of that steering wheel. You're going to start making decisions. Take control of your life. You're going to create a life of magnificence beyond your wildest dreams. That is for sure. Doors will open for you that you never even knew existed. Opportunities will come your way when you are on the path that you're meant to be walking on. The world, the universe, your God conspire to fast track you on that journey. It's quite amazing. Things that previously you would have looked at as challenges, you now look at as opportunities, opportunities for rapid growth. You put yourself in charge and you take control. And you become the person that you need to be to start achieving your greatness. Because the person that you are today, you need to break up with. The person that you are today is preventing you from reaching your grace, your greatness and your magnificence. So in summary, choosing to stay leads you to pain and struggle. Choosing to reinvent, however, leads you to a flow and a pleasant life, a life of happiness and joy. If you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got. If you don't change the ingredients in the cake will not change. If you don't leave out the chocolate chips and put in caramel chips, that cake will be the same every time you bake it. American President Benjamin Franklin very famously once said, most people die at 25. In other words, their lives stop at 25. And yet we only bury them at 75. From 25 to 75, their lives stagnate because they're on the journey of life. They don't take control of that life. They lead life or their superpower or their God, their universe, to direct where they should go. So I'd like to share with you a reinvention opportunity that's coming up a little bit later this month. In the chat, please just put yes, yes, if you'd like to hear a little bit more about it. Then I can share with you a little bit about that. Struggling with the who and the what, Sunny. Okay. All right. Okay, thanks, folks. All right. So the reinvention is all about taking control. It's all about putting you in charge and finding out who do you need to become. So I just want to spend just a few minutes just giving you some feedback on what a couple of people have said after they worked with me in various different aspects. Leslie, I wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm so grateful for the gift that you've given me. You're an amazing individual. I don't have the right words to express my gratitude. All in all, this was an incredibly emotional shift for me from day one. I have loved the course and loved the teaching that you've given. I have learned so much about myself, the areas in my life that I need to work on. Thank you just isn't enough. Thank you. Thanks to you as you truly untangle me both soul and emotions when you offered a way forward for me. For that, I will remain eternally grateful. Thank you so much. This was a particularly emotional journey that this young gentleman went on. I'm so exhausted now, and I don't understand why tears are just flowing out of me. He had such a release of pent-up emotion. I really appreciate everything that you did and for believing in me, all the work and effort. The passion behind this really is appreciated. It was really life-changing. Leslie guided me to clarity, the steps to take, and also helped me remove some blocks that were preventing me from achieving the things that I wanted to. Leslie teaches and coaches from years of knowledge and experience that is practical and enlightening, and it is very clear that she loves impacting our lives. She's made a huge difference in mine, and I'm eternally grateful. This lady was stuck for 3 years. So your choice, ladies and gentlemen, 20 and 20 all over again, or is 2021 and beyond different? It's your choice. So we're going to get the job done on the 17th of April. It's a 4-hour session from 9 to 1. We're going to give you some pre-work to do, and that will help us to actually determine your core values. What are the things that are important to you now in this chapter of your life? We're going to help you to create your new life, your new journey. And we're going to spend a little bit of time working out who do you need to become to reach that goal, to reach that new journey. We're going to look at the things that are holding you back, and we'll break through a couple of those. And then I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking to you about critics and cheerleaders, because the fact is that we have critics and cheerleaders in our life all day, every day. But when you know how to deal with them, you disempower the critics and you empower the cheerleaders. So the value of all of this is 13,500 Rand. It's 4 hours of time with me. And folks, because this is such an interactive session, there are no slides or anything like that. It's very interactive. We talk, it's a workshop, okay? There are only 15 people on this workshop. It's not something I do for a lot of people because I can't get to help everybody, right? When I'm finished my book, you'll get a copy of the full book. Now, the handbook is in 2 sections. First is all the theory and all the information, of which you're going to get the first 4 shortly. But the back of the book is all exercises that you can do, tools that you can use to actually take yourself through this whole journey. So that's actually gold dust. Obviously, you will give you access to the recording if you'd like, and for the people in that session who would like, there's going to be a chance to win a 90-minute personal coaching session with me. So my team have popped the registration link into the chat. Folks, because I'm doing this on Cobus Visser's platform, he has asked me to be very generous. And he asked me if I could do this at $35. Now, $35 in South African terms is just over 500 Rand. So 500 Rand for 13,500 Rands worth of values. 500 Rand to spend 4 hours with me. In a normal coaching space, to spend 4 hours with me would cost you individually 8,000. One-on-one. That's what it would cost. So please, 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 if you are wanting to change your life, if you want to take control and you want to get a different life by the end of this year, please join me on this session. I promise you the feedback that I've had from the last 2 that I've done has been amazing. I had people in tears because they discovered limiting beliefs that they never ever knew they had. They couldn't understand why their life was working. They couldn't understand why another lady couldn't understand why her relationships were not working. And when we got to the core of it, she had a ta-da moment all of her own. So please, if you're interested for the workshop, please copy that link, save it onto a Word document, or copy it now and go and register for that workshop. There's a payment portal on that workshop. Okay, there are my contact details. You're welcome to take a photograph of them, or you're welcome to write them down so that you can contact me separately if you need to. All right, so the cell phone number is 082-345-3084. And my email address is leslie@e2, the letter E, the digit 2, lifecoaching.com. All right. So what I'd like to do now is just ask each one of you in turn what your number 1 takeaway from tonight was. Audrey, would you like to unmute yourself and just let me know what the number one thing you're taking away with you tonight?
For me is the realization that I really need to put effort into changing my life. It's not going to like happen for itself.
Yeah.
It's going to take time. Yeah, that's it.
It's not that it's going to take time, but Aldi, it's all about taking control, putting in the effort. It can change very quickly. I promise you, it can
Thank you.
change very quickly.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Annika, for you.
I've realized again that I am my own biggest stumbling block in life.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are we going to do about it?
Well, I need to remove that stumbling block
Oops,
from
sorry.
my own life. Sorry?
I lost the sound there for a moment. You need to what?
To remove my own stumbling block from my own life.
Uh-huh. And you know what the stumbling block is?
Silly beliefs.
Ah, okay. All right. So you can work on those.
I hope I can. I trust I will.
Great stuff. Thank you so much. Candace, for you. Candace, I can't hear you. Maybe can you unplug your earphones? Maybe the microphone's not working.
Can you hear me now? Okay. It's very similar to what I put in earlier. I think it was that identifying exactly what my fear was that's causing my limiting belief.
Okay. Right. Very good. Thank you, Candace. Tonya, for you, the takeaway from tonight?
I think it is that it's up to me.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. Thank you. Noreen, for you.
Hi there. I think for me, it's procrastination is a thief time, and it's time for change. I have a lot of nuggets that I've taken away from the session, but that's for me. I've been stalling over the years, and it's time for change.
So Noreen, I want to ask you a question, and my clients hate me when I ask this question, but it's a necessary part of the journey. What has that stalling cost you? Not financially, but in life. What is the price that you paid?
It's when I was diagnosed with cancer, I lost all my self-esteem and self-belief, and I was embarrassed to share this or even mention this in the workplace. I used to carry myself as this woman that had it all together, and I had come to a realization where I said, how I need to take this challenge and turn it into a story where I can change people's lives and help motivate people in a similar situation. But the realization only came in much, much later. It robbed me of the time because I could have touched so many other people's lives by now had I not procrastinated. Yeah. But it's never too late.
Absolutely, never too late. But just don't let another day go by.
Absolutely, yeah. That's why I'm on this course, see?
Awesome. Just promise me you won't let another day go by without taking action.
It's something that I have realized since COVID. I've been making changes since then. And I think, when you have this aha moment, you sit sometimes and you realize, hey, life is passing you by. You need to make changes. There's a purpose. You have to go through a test to have a testimony, because then you can connect with people on the emotional level. And 2020, I've come to that realization.
Awesome. Very proud of you for that. Well done.
Thanks.
Fawzia, for you. You're muted.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yes, yes. Yes, it's I think for me, once again, the stumbling block is the procrastination. And most important thing is I need to constantly remind myself that I am in control. And that's what's been highlighted for me.
Yeah.
Because what happens is if I need to do something for everybody else around me, there's no procrastination. Or when it comes to myself, there is. And it's been highlighted once again that I've shortchanged myself all along.
Yeah.
I should actually apply those rules when I'm taking care of myself,
Yeah.
as opposed to those around me. So I am in control. And that's what I've learned. And it's been highlighted once again. I need to change that mindset and move forward.
Totally. And understand, ladies, because I think we're now all ladies on this group again, that as women, from a very young age, we model our mothers and our grandmothers and the older women in our lives. And they come out of a generation where the women sacrificed themselves, their goals, their drive, their ambitions for the good of their family, for their husbands and for their children. So that is what was modeled as we were growing up. So our belief goes around the fact that as the mother and as the wife, we put ourselves last in the pecking order. Life is not like that anymore. We live in a different world. So we need to dismantle that. We need to put ourselves first and say, you know what? In order for us to be the best wife and daughter and sister and mother that we can be, our cups need to be full first.
Absolutely.
How do you fill your cup? Thank you, Fawzia.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nokutula, for you, what was the number one takeaway from tonight?
You mentioned something about aligning the values, the identity, I think, and dreams and goals. Just that to have that alignment, because I think normally we want to jump to the dreams before we understand our values.
Yeah.
And who we really are. And you find that you set goals that are totally un-you, if I can use that word, that are so contrary to your values, and you wonder why you're so frustrated, you're so unhappy.
Yeah.
So that alignment is very important.
And it's not necessarily about the goal that's not in alignment, but it's the way we phrase that goal. It's the way that we talk that goal and the way that we describe it that is not aligned. And that in that fine we can sink or swim with that one. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And Zani, for yourself?
For me, Leslie, I think, understanding how deep the limiting beliefs go. I think, we grow up and then we acquire an education and we think, no, we can solve our life issues. And we never take time out to try and do a bit of a root cause analysis. And we all tend to believe I can make it, I have what it takes, but we don't understand what it is that is holding us so back and we're not getting to where we need to get. So, when you came to that chapter, I didn't think there was much for me in this course. I've had it all before, medically trained. So I thought, let me see what I can get. And it just dropped, the penny just dropped. I almost said, wow, that's exactly what is happening here. That is what I never took time out to try and unfold and see for myself what lies underneath that root cause analysis. So I really must say thank you very much.
You're most welcome. And folks, I have a life philosophy of I help people to see their future differently. And if that is what I've achieved tonight, then I have lived my life philosophy. Ladies, do you have any questions about anything tonight? Anything that I've said, anything that we've gone through?
Leslie, I do have one. Sure, I'll sign up for the course. I am interested. And I want to understand, will we have a session where we go through, because when we had to do the who are you and the what are you, it became a bit difficult for me to jot it down, because I'm thinking for the external you, is that things that people say about you, and how do you go about finding that about you? So it wasn't very clear for me how one does that exercise.
So we spend about an hour doing values, then we spend about an hour with your limiting beliefs, we spend an hour with your identity. So you can see there's a lot of time for us to unpack this and to go deep. And we have a
Awesome.
good look at your chapters, because it's
Okay, great.
lived your past chapters that give you the key as to how you're going to succeed in your future chapters.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. So Aldi, allowing others to control my thinking. It is so important that you know what you think, that you form your own thoughts and you let go of the thoughts that were, and I'm going to use the word indoctrinated by our parents and by our teachers. What we learn sub 7 years of age rules our entire life unless we address them. It is so important, folks, that those things that are keeping you small, that are stopping you from being magnificent, that we get to them, we find them, we remove them, weed them out. So, great, great, great insight. Very good. So my team have let me know that the winner of the 60 seconds is da-da-da-da, Noreen. Well done, well done. Thank you for everybody for your, there I go, 60 seconds worth of coaching. Can you cope with that, Noreen?
Thank you very much. I'm excited. I need it.
No, you're not listening to what I'm saying. You see,
Sorry?
you're hearing 60 minutes.
I mean, when you said with Noreen, I got like, so it's my brains just got so excited and I didn't hear the latter part of it.
Out of my mouth is coming 60 seconds.
Okay.
Not going to be much of a coaching session.
60 seconds. Every second adds value right now for me. So 60 seconds is great.
60 minutes or 1 hour coaching session. All right.
Yeah, everything adds value.
Noreen, you've got my cell phone number. Did you write it down?
I do. Thank you, Leslie. Leslie, I have a question to ask. It's so I'm in the event management business. Do you do these coaching for in corporate situations,
Yes, I
like for Women's Day and all of it?
Yes, I
Okay, great.
I speak. This is just one of the topics that I speak on, because
Okay.
this one is what I'm passionate about, and this is what I'm driving. But there's a lot that I speak on. Part of what I do in my other life is I work with distressed leadership teams. So leadership teams that are not functioning properly, I work with them and I help them leave the we agendas and create, leave the I agendas and create we agendas. So let us chat offline, but please
Sure.
send me a WhatsApp. And then we can set up a session for you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
And ladies, if any of you have any questions that you'd like to ask me, drop me a WhatsApp. If you want to set up some time to have a session with me, we can do that too. Otherwise, I hope that I see you. Are there any other questions just before we go? Is everybody good? All right. Then ladies, be blessed. I hope to see you all on the workshop. And Noreen, you and I will catch up. Stay blessed, be amazing, and step into your magnificence. Thank you, ladies. Bye-bye.
Thank you.